Let's have an honest conversation about something most women experience but rarely discuss openly. When you're in those intimate moments with someone you care about, do you ever feel this subtle pressure, this unspoken expectation that you need to perform, to know exactly what to do, to make everything perfect? If you do, I want you to take a deep breath right now because you are not alone in this feeling. Almost every woman, regardless of how confident she appears or how experienced she is, carries this quiet anxiety. We worry about our bodies, about whether we're doing things right, about whether he's truly satisfied or just being polite. And here's what makes this even more exhausting. Intimacy starts to feel like work, like a test you didn't study for, like a performance where you're constantly watching yourself from the outside, critiquing every move, every sound, every moment. This anxiety doesn't just affect you, it actually creates a barrier between you and your partner. When you're in your head, analyzing and worrying, you're not truly present. You're not experiencing the moment. You're performing a role rather than sharing an experience. And he can feel that distance, even if he doesn't have words for it. The irony is that the very thing you're doing to try to please him, this careful, anxious performance, is actually preventing the deep satisfaction you both want. Now, you've probably heard all kinds of advice about this. Maybe you've read articles about specific techniques or watched videos promising to teach you secret moves, and perhaps you've tried some of these things. Maybe they worked for a moment, or maybe they just made you feel more self-conscious, more like you were following a script rather than connecting with another human being. Here's what those articles and videos usually tell you: that male pleasure is complex, that you need to learn specific skills, that there's some kind of roadmap you need to memorize. They make it sound like you need advanced training, like intimacy is a technical skill that requires practice and precision. And the more you consume this kind of content, the more inadequate you might feel. Because if it's so complicated, if there are so many things to learn and remember, how could you possibly get it all right? But what if I told you that this entire framework is wrong? What if the truth about male pleasure isn't complicated at all? What if, in fact, you've been looking at this completely backwards? The techniques, the moves, the things you think you need to learn, they're not the foundation of incredible intimacy. They're just the surface. And focusing on the surface while missing the foundation is exactly why so many women feel exhausted and disconnected during what should be the most connecting moments of their lives. There's something specific I'm going to share with you today, one principle that changes everything. And once you understand this, intimacy stops being work. It stops being a performance. It becomes easy, not because you're being lazy or careless, but because you're finally working with human psychology instead of against it. You're going to feel a shift in your own body as you absorb this information, because this isn't just knowledge. This is permission. Permission to stop trying so hard. Permission to experience pleasure instead of manufacturing it. Permission to be yourself instead of performing a role. When I say male pleasure is easy when you know this one thing, I'm not promising you won't need to be present or engaged. I'm not saying you can just lie there and everything will be magical. What I'm saying is that when you understand the psychological foundation of how male pleasure actually works, everything else flows naturally. You stop second-guessing yourself. You stop performing. You start experiencing. And that shift, that movement from performance to presence, is what creates the kind of intimacy that both of you will remember long after the moment has passed. So let's talk about what makes men feel deeply satisfied. And to understand this, we need to go beyond the physical and look at the psychology, because here's a truth that might surprise you. Men are not as simple as we've been told. Their pleasure isn't just about physical sensation. In fact, the physical sensation is only part of the equation. The deeper, more powerful part is psychological. And this is where everything changes. There's a concept in psychology called the hero instinct. You might have heard this term in relationship advice, usually talking about how men want to feel needed or useful. But this instinct goes much deeper than that, especially in intimate contexts. From an evolutionary perspective, men are wired to be providers and protectors. Their sense of self-worth, their masculine identity, is deeply connected to their ability to take care of the people they love. This isn't about outdated gender roles or toxic masculinity. This is about understanding a genuine psychological drive that exists in most men. Now here's where this becomes relevant to intimacy. When a man is with you in those vulnerable moments, his deepest desire isn't just to experience physical pleasure himself. His deepest desire is to be the source of your pleasure. To feel like he can satisfy you, to know that his touch, his presence, his energy is creating something beautiful for you. This is the hero instinct expressing itself in the most intimate context possible. He wants to feel capable. He wants to feel like he matters. He wants to know that he can make you feel incredible. Think about this for a moment. When you're focused entirely on what you should be doing to him, you're actually bypassing what he wants most. You're performing for him instead of allowing him to affect you. And while he might experience physical sensation from what you're doing, he's missing that deeper psychological satisfaction. He's missing the validation that comes from knowing he's successfully creating pleasure for you. This is the key that most advice completely misses, the key that makes everything else make sense. There's scientific backing for this too. Research on mirror neurons shows us something fascinating about human connection. Mirror neurons are brain cells that fire both when we perform an action and when we observe someone else performing that action. They're the reason we wince when we see someone get hurt, or why we smile when we see someone laughing. These neurons create empathy, allowing us to experience what others are experiencing. In intimate contexts, mirror neurons play a crucial role. When he sees you experiencing genuine pleasure, when he watches your face respond to his touch, when he hears your breathing change because of what he's doing, his mirror neurons fire. His brain literally experiences an echo of your pleasure. This is why your authentic response amplifies his experience exponentially. It's not just that he enjoys seeing you happy, it's that your pleasure triggers his own pleasure response at a neurological level. Your genuine reactions create a feedback loop that intensifies everything he's feeling. This is the scientific foundation for why faking it never really works. Sure, he might not consciously know you're performing, but on some level, his mirror neurons aren't firing the same way. There's something missing in the authenticity, and even if he can't articulate it, he can feel it. Genuine response creates genuine neural firing. Performance creates a muted version, and over time, that difference matters deeply. Now let's talk about something that might make you see men differently. We often think of men as sexually confident, always ready, always sure of themselves. But the truth is that men carry enormous sexual vulnerability. They worry about performance. They compare themselves to past partners or to images they've seen. They fear not being enough, not lasting long enough, not being skilled enough. They worry about their bodies just like women do. And these fears can create significant anxiety that affects their ability to be present and connected. When a man feels sexually vulnerable, when he's worried about whether he's good enough, something interesting happens. He becomes hyper-aware of your reactions. He's watching for signs that you're satisfied, that he's doing well, that he matters. And if he can't read those signs, if you're performing or holding back, his anxiety increases. He starts to feel disconnected, uncertain, like he's failing somehow. This creates a negative cycle where his anxiety makes him less present, which makes the experience less satisfying for both of you, which increases his anxiety even more. Understanding this vulnerability is crucial because it helps you see why your authentic response matters so much. When you allow yourself to genuinely experience and express what he's creating for you, you're not just being generous with sounds or movements. You're providing psychological safety. You're answering the question he's asking with his body. Am I enough? Do I matter? Can I satisfy you? And when the answer is yes, when he can see and feel that yes in your authentic response, his vulnerability transforms into confidence. His anxiety dissolves into presence. And that's when the experience becomes truly extraordinary for both of you. So here it is, the core principle that changes everything. The thing that makes male pleasure easy once you understand it. Are you ready? Here's the truth. His deepest pleasure comes from successfully creating pleasure for you. When you authentically respond to his touch, his presence, his energy, it validates his capability and amplifies his sensations exponentially. This is what I call the validation feedback loop. And once you understand this loop, everything about intimacy becomes simpler and more satisfying. Let me break this down clearly. The validation feedback loop works like this. He touches you or connects with you in some way. You experience genuine pleasure or appreciation from that connection. You express that pleasure authentically through your body, your voice, your energy. He receives that expression as validation that he's successfully affecting you. That validation triggers his mirror neurons and satisfies his hero instinct. His own pleasure intensifies because he feels capable and connected. His increased pleasure and confidence make him more present and attuned. His increased presence creates even more genuine pleasure for you, and the cycle continues, building and intensifying. This is why intimacy can feel so incredibly connecting when it's working well. You're not just experiencing parallel pleasures, you're creating an amplifying loop where each person's satisfaction increases the others. But here's the crucial part. This loop only works with authenticity. If you're performing, if you're faking responses to try to please him, the loop breaks down. His mirror neurons don't fire fully. His hero instinct isn't truly satisfied because on some level, he senses something is off. And instead of building, the energy plateaus or even decreases. The beautiful thing about understanding this loop is that it completely reframes what your role is during intimacy. You're not there to perform techniques on him. You're not there to make yourself into some kind of fantasy. You're there to authentically receive what he's offering and let him see the impact he's having on you. That's it. That's the foundation of everything. And when you get that foundation right, everything else becomes easy because you're working with human psychology instead of against it. Now, this might be making you think, wait, so I should just focus on myself? Isn't that selfish? And this is where we need to talk about a powerful reframe. What you've probably been taught is that being a good partner means focusing entirely on the other person's pleasure, sometimes at the expense of your own. You've been taught that selflessness is generous and self-focus is selfish. But in the context of intimacy, this framework is completely backwards. When you focus on your own authentic experience, when you allow yourself to genuinely feel and respond to what's happening, you're actually giving your partner the greatest gift possible. You're giving him the validation his hero instinct craves. You're triggering his mirror neurons. You're creating the feedback loop that amplifies both of your experiences. This isn't selfish. This is generous in the deepest way possible. You're offering him the experience of mattering, of being capable, of successfully creating something beautiful. And that experience is more satisfying to him than any technique you could perform. Think about it this way. Imagine you're giving someone a gift. You've put thought into it, you care about this person, and you're excited to see their reaction. Now imagine two scenarios. In the first scenario, they open the gift and give you a polite smile and a generic thank you. You can tell they're being nice, but you're not sure if they actually like it. You feel uncertain, maybe a bit disappointed. In the second scenario, they open the gift and their face lights up. You can see genuine delight in their eyes. They tell you specifically what they love about it. They're authentically excited and appreciative. How different do those two scenarios feel to you as the gift giver? The second scenario feels amazing, right? You feel validated. You feel like you succeeded. You feel connected to this person because they received your gift authentically. This is exactly how the validation feedback loop works in intimacy. When you authentically receive what he's offering, when you let him see the real impact he's having on you, you're validating his gift. You're completing the circuit. And that completion is what creates deep satisfaction for him. So here's your permission. Focus on yourself. Pay attention to what genuinely feels good. Notice where you feel pleasure, appreciation, connection. And then let that show. Don't perform it. Don't exaggerate it. Just let what's real be visible. This shift from performance to presence, from manufacturing to experiencing, is the shift that makes intimacy easy. Because you're no longer working against your own nature. You're finally allowing yourself to be human, to be real, to be present. And that realness is magnetic in a way that performance never can be. Let's get practical now. How do you actually apply this understanding? How do you create and maintain the validation feedback loop in real, intimate moments? Let's start with something that many women struggle with. Vocal expression. You might have been told that men love when women are vocal during intimacy. And that's true, but not for the reasons you might think. It's not about performing pornographic sounds. It's about authentic communication. The language of response is about letting him hear the impact he's having on you. This can be as simple as changes in your breathing. When something feels good, your breath naturally deepens or quickens or catches. Don't control that. Let it happen. Let him hear it. Those breath changes tell him more than any words could. They're involuntary, authentic responses that his nervous system recognizes as real. Similarly, soft sounds that emerge naturally from pleasure, little sighs or moans that you're not manufacturing but simply allowing, these communicate directly to his instincts. Verbal appreciation is powerful too, but it needs to be specific and genuine. Instead of generic phrases that sound like they came from a script, try noticing specific sensations and mentioning them. You might say something like, "Your hands feel so warm," or "I love how strong you feel," or "The way you're touching me right now is perfect." These specific observations do two things. First, they validate that you're genuinely experiencing something positive. Second, they guide him toward what's working, which helps him feel more confident and capable. The key with all vocal expression is authenticity. If you're naturally quiet, you don't need to force yourself to be loud. If you're naturally more expressive, you don't need to hold back. The point isn't to match some external standard of how women should sound. The point is to let what's real be expressed. Trust that your authentic response, whatever form it takes, is exactly what creates the feedback loop. Because it is. Authenticity triggers mirror neurons and satisfies the hero instinct. Performance doesn't. Now let's talk about visual validation. Eye contact during intimate moments can feel incredibly vulnerable. Many women close their eyes because it feels safer, less exposed. And that's okay sometimes. But I want you to understand what happens when you let him see your eyes, when you let him see your genuine response in your face. Visual cues are incredibly powerful for the validation feedback loop because they're hard to fake convincingly. Your pupils dilate with genuine arousal. Your facial muscles relax in specific ways with real pleasure. Micro-expressions flash across your face that communicate authentic emotion. When you keep your eyes open, when you look at him while he's touching you or connecting with you, you're giving him direct access to your authentic experience. He can see the pleasure in your eyes. He can watch your face respond to what he's doing. And that visual feedback is incredibly validating for him. It answers his unspoken question, is this working? Am I creating something real for her? The answer written on your face is more convincing than any sound or word could be. If eye contact feels too intense at first, you can build up to it gradually. Start with brief moments of connection. Look at him for a few seconds, then look away if you need to. As you become more comfortable with the vulnerability, those moments of connection will naturally lengthen, and you'll start to notice how his energy shifts when you look at him, how he becomes more present, more focused, more connected. That shift is the feedback loop activating. Your visual openness is validating him, which intensifies his experience, which deepens the connection between you. Body language matters too. The way you move, the way you position yourself, the way you touch him back. All of these communicate whether you're authentically engaged or performing. When you're genuinely experiencing pleasure, your body naturally moves toward the source of that pleasure. You lean in rather than pulling away. Your muscles relax rather than tensing. Your touch becomes exploratory and appreciative rather than mechanical. These authentic movements reassure him that you're truly present, truly engaged, truly affected by what's happening. Here's something that might surprise you. Enthusiasm matters more than technique. A woman who is genuinely enthusiastic, who is authentically engaged and appreciative, will create more pleasure and satisfaction than a woman who knows every technique but is emotionally distant. This is because enthusiasm communicates the validation feedback loop in its purest form. When you're enthusiastic, you're clearly expressing that he matters, that what he's doing is working, that you value this connection. And that expression is what satisfies him at the deepest level. Think about the difference between someone doing something out of obligation versus someone doing something because they genuinely want to. You can feel that difference, right? Even if the actions are identical, the energy behind them is completely different. The same is true in intimacy. When you're enthusiastic, when you're genuinely wanting to be there and connect with him, that energy is palpable. It makes everything feel different. It transforms the experience from transactional to transcendent. Now, enthusiasm doesn't mean you need to be bouncing off the walls with energy. It means being genuinely present and appreciative. It means letting yourself want this connection. It means giving yourself permission to enjoy rather than endure. And here's the beautiful thing. When you give yourself that permission, when you shift from trying to please him to allowing yourself to experience pleasure with him, your natural enthusiasm emerges. You don't have to manufacture it. You just have to stop suppressing it. Let's go deeper now. For those of you who are really engaged and want to understand the more nuanced layers of this, let's talk about anticipation. There's an architecture to desire, a structure to how pleasure builds and intensifies. And understanding this architecture allows you to work with the validation feedback loop at an even more sophisticated level. Anticipation is one of the most powerful amplifiers of pleasure that exists. The waiting, the building tension, the delayed gratification, these create neurological conditions that make eventual satisfaction far more intense. Here's how this connects to the feedback loop. When you introduce strategic pauses, when you slow down just as energy is building, when you create moments of suspended anticipation, you're intensifying his experience in multiple ways. First, the anticipation itself increases his arousal and focus. Second, during those pauses, he's watching you, reading you, connecting with you, which deepens the intimacy. Third, when the connection resumes after a pause, the contrast makes it feel more intense. And fourth, your ability to control the pacing demonstrates confidence, which is incredibly attractive and validating to him. Strategic pausing doesn't mean teasing in a manipulative way. It means being attuned to the rhythm of energy between you and knowing when to build and when to let tension accumulate. It means trusting that slower can be more powerful than faster. It means having the confidence to let moments breathe instead of rushing towards some imagined finish line. This kind of pacing requires presence. You can't do it if you're in your head worrying about performance. You can only do it when you're genuinely tuned in to what's happening between you. The ability to read and respond to subtle cues is another deeper layer of this work. As you become more present during intimate moments, you'll start to notice small shifts in his energy, his breathing, his muscle tension, his vocal patterns. These subtle cues tell you what's landing, what's building, what's creating pleasure for him. And when you respond to these cues, when you adjust your energy or pacing based on what you're noticing, you're demonstrating attunement. You're showing him that you're paying attention, that you care about his experience, that this is a genuine exchange rather than a performance. Reading cues isn't about becoming hypervigilant or analytical. It's about softening your awareness and allowing yourself to notice. It's about trusting your intuition. You already have the capacity to read people. You do it all the time in other contexts. You notice when someone is uncomfortable or excited or distracted. The same skills apply here. You just need to give yourself permission to trust what you're noticing and respond authentically to it. When you do, the experience becomes personalized, unique to this moment with this person. And that personalization deepens the connection and satisfaction for both of you. There's also a confidence multiplier effect that happens when you understand and apply these principles. Confidence creates positive cycles in intimacy. When you feel confident, you're more present and less self-conscious. When you're more present, you experience more genuine pleasure. When you experience genuine pleasure, you express it more authentically. When you express authentically, he feels validated and becomes more present himself. When he's more present, the experience improves for you, which increases your confidence even more. This positive cycle can transform your entire intimate life over time, but building confidence when you've been self-conscious requires interrupting old thought patterns. When you notice yourself starting to worry about how you look or whether you're doing things right, you need a way to redirect your attention. The most effective redirection is to focus on sensation. What do you actually feel right now? What sensations are present in your body? What do his hands feel like? What temperature is his skin? What does his energy feel like? By anchoring your attention in direct sensory experience, you pull yourself out of anxious thinking and back into the present moment. And presence is where confidence lives. Now let's address some obstacles that might be coming up for you as you think about applying this. One common challenge is when desire itself feels absent. Maybe you're in a long-term relationship and things have become routine. Maybe you're dealing with stress or hormonal changes that affect your libido. Maybe you're just tired. When desire doesn't feel spontaneous, it's easy to think that authentic response is impossible. But here's something important to understand. There are two types of desire: spontaneous and responsive. Spontaneous desire is what we often think of as normal desire. It just appears out of nowhere. You're going about your day, and suddenly you want intimacy. But many women, especially in long-term relationships, primarily experience responsive desire. This means desire emerges in response to pleasurable stimulation rather than preceding it. If you have responsive desire, you might not feel turned on until after intimacy has already begun. And that's completely normal and healthy. It doesn't mean something is wrong with you or your relationship. Understanding responsive desire changes how you approach intimacy. Instead of waiting to feel desire before engaging, you might choose to engage and allow desire to emerge. This isn't the same as forcing yourself or having unwanted intimacy. It's about being open to the possibility that desire might develop once you're actually connecting. And when you enter intimate moments with this openness, with curiosity about what might emerge rather than pressure about what should already be there, you create space for authentic response even when desire wasn't spontaneous. Another obstacle is when your partner seems disconnected or disengaged himself. Maybe he's stressed about work, Maybe he's dealing with his own performance anxiety. Maybe there are unresolved issues between you that are creating emotional distance. When he seems checked out, it's hard to create the validation feedback loop because he's not fully present to receive your authentic response. In these situations, the most important thing you can do is create safety and remove pressure. Men often withdraw when they feel like they're failing or when they're overwhelmed by expectations. If he's dealing with stress or anxiety, adding sexual pressure will likely make him withdraw more. Instead, focus on creating connection without agenda, physical affection without the expectation of it leading to intimacy, genuine appreciation for who he is rather than what he does. Conversations where you listen without trying to fix. These create the psychological safety he needs to access vulnerability. And vulnerability is what allows the feedback loop to function. When he feels safe, when pressure is removed, he's more likely to open up and be present. Sometimes the obstacles are internal, rooted in your own history. If you've experienced trauma, if you carry shame about sexuality, if you received negative messages about your body or desires, these can create significant blocks to authentic response. And I want to say clearly, those blocks are valid. Your feelings are real and deserving of respect. Healing from past experiences is a journey that can't be rushed. If this resonates with you, please consider working with a therapist who specializes in sexual trauma or shame. Professional support can make an enormous difference. In the meantime, be gentle with yourself. Moving at your own pace is not just okay, it's necessary. You don't need to force yourself into vulnerability before you're ready. Small steps count. Noticing what feels safe and staying within that zone while gradually expanding it. That's how healing happens. And even in the midst of healing, you can practice elements of authentic response. You can notice moments of genuine appreciation or connection, even if they're brief. You can communicate honestly about what you need. Authenticity includes being authentic about your limits and your process. So let's bring this all together into something actionable. You've learned about the validation feedback loop. You understand the psychology behind why authentic response matters so much. You've explored practical ways to express that response. You've considered obstacles and how to navigate them. Now what? What's your actual starting point? Because information without application doesn't create change. You need a clear, simple first step. Here are 3 options, and you only need to choose one. First option, tonight or the next time you're intimate with your partner, practice expressing one genuine appreciation. Notice something specific that feels good and mention it simply. Your touch feels amazing right now. I love being close to you like this. This feels so good. Just one specific, genuine statement. That's it. That's your whole assignment. Notice how it feels to express appreciation authentically and notice how he responds. Second option, try one moment of authentic response. This could be allowing your breath to change naturally instead of controlling it. It could be making eye contact for a few seconds when you usually keep your eyes closed. It could be allowing a genuine sound to emerge instead of staying silent. Pick one small way to let your authentic response show and experiment with it. Again, notice how it feels and how he responds. You're gathering information about the feedback loop in action. Third option, have one conversation about mutual pleasure. This might feel vulnerable, but it can be incredibly connecting. You could say something like, I've been thinking about how we can both enjoy intimacy more. I read that men really love seeing their partner genuinely enjoying themselves. Is that true for you? This opens a dialogue where you can talk about the validation feedback loop without calling it that. You can explore together what authentic response looks like and how it affects both of you. Choose whichever option feels most doable to you right now. You don't need to do all 3. You don't need to overhaul your entire intimate life overnight. Small, consistent steps create lasting change more effectively than dramatic overhauls. Start with one thing. Practice it. Notice what happens. Then build from there. This is how you integrate new understanding into actual experience. This is how information becomes transformation. Now, I want to talk about identity for a moment. Because ultimately, this isn't just about learning techniques or understanding psychology. This is about shifting how you see yourself in intimate contexts. For many women, the identity they carry into intimacy is performer. They see themselves as responsible for creating pleasure for their partner, for making the experience good, for being skilled and capable and impressive. And that identity creates enormous pressure and disconnection. I want to offer you a different identity. What if you saw yourself as a woman whose authentic pleasure creates mutual satisfaction? What if your role wasn't to perform, but to experience? What if you trusted that your genuine response, your real appreciation, your authentic presence was not just enough, but was actually the most valuable thing you could offer? This identity shift changes everything. It removes pressure. It creates permission. It allows you to be human instead of perfect. This new identity says, I don't need to have all the answers or know all the moves. I don't need to look a certain way or sound a certain way. I just need to show up genuinely and let myself be affected by this connection. When I do that, when I'm real and present and responsive, I create something beautiful for both of us. That's my power. That's my gift. Not my performance, but my presence. Not my technique, but my authenticity. Not my perfection, but my humanity. Stepping into this identity might feel uncomfortable at first. You might feel vulnerable or uncertain. That's normal. You're changing a pattern that's been reinforced for years, maybe decades. Be patient with yourself. Celebrate small moments of authenticity. Notice when you catch yourself performing and gently redirect back to experiencing. Over time, this new identity will become more natural. It will become who you are rather than who you're trying to be. And that's when intimacy transforms from something you do into something you share. Here's the ultimate truth I want you to take with you. Intimacy isn't about perfection. It's not about having the right body, or knowing the right moves, or saying the right things. Intimacy is about presence and authentic connection. It's about two people allowing themselves to be real with each other, vulnerable with each other, affected by each other. When you show up genuinely, when you express real response and appreciation, when you let yourself be human instead of perfect, you create experiences that satisfy both of you at the deepest level. The validation feedback loop isn't a technique to master. It's a natural human dynamic that emerges when authenticity is present. You don't have to force it or manufacture it. You just have to stop blocking it. You have to give yourself permission to receive, to respond, to be affected. When you do, when you trust that your genuine experience is valuable and validating, everything becomes easier. Not because you're doing less, but because you're finally aligned with how human connection actually works. You have everything you need already. You don't need to become someone different or learn complicated skills. You just need to trust yourself. Trust your body, trust your authentic responses. Trust that what's real in you is exactly what creates real connection. That trust is your foundation. Build from there. Experiment, notice, adjust, grow. But always come back to that foundation of trusting your own authenticity. I hope this has shifted something for you. I hope you feel lighter, more empowered, more capable than you did when we started. If this resonated with you, please like this video and subscribe for more content on confidence, connection, and authentic intimacy. And I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Which principle spoke to you most? What are you going to try first? Your stories and questions matter. They help me create content that serves you better, and they help other women feel less alone in their own journeys. Remember, you are powerful, you are worthy of incredible intimacy, and you are absolutely ready for this. The only thing standing between you and deeply satisfying connection is permission. Permission to be yourself. Permission to experience rather than perform. Permission to trust that your authentic response is not just enough, it's everything. I'm giving you that permission right now. Take it, use it, and watch how everything shifts when you do. I'll see you in the next video.